The whole point of doing toleration elimination is to subtract from your life that which is not working or which is draining you, and add to your life the things that put a smile on your face and light you up. That's the whole point of it, is to stop filling your life with things that aren't working or are bothering you, and bring more joy and excitement and passion into your life.
Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you all to Smart Women Talk. Your energy is a form of currency that you spend daily on countless obligations and activities. Yet many of us unknowingly invest in things that we merely tolerate, draining us even further. So discover the first step to reclaiming your energy by identifying these tolerations and letting them go. Today, we have a returning guest, Colleen Kilpatrick. She's an author, and she is going to reveal how understanding and eliminating what drains you can help generate more energy for your priorities, for what's important to you, for your dreams, and for your passions. So, Colleen, with that, welcome to Smart Women Talk. I'm so excited to have you here again. So we're at the beginning of the year when we're doing the show, and we are talking about these things that we tolerate. There may be people here that don't understand what a toleration is. So can you just share, what is the toleration, and when did you first come into this idea?
So a toleration is a word or a term that the late Thomas Leonard coined. It's all those things, those bothersome, annoying, frustrating things that if we had our druthers, we would get rid of, but we put up with. For whatever reason, we put up with them. So it might be an unfinished project, or a thank you note that has been written, or library books that need to be returned and you just haven't done it. All those little things that are niggling in the back of your mind that you just don't do. And when I first came in contact with this, it was when I was training to become a coach, and I hired my own coach, and she sent me a packet of welcome documents. And in there was a worksheet, and it said, "What are you tolerating?" Now, there were a lot of worksheets, and they were all challenging. Who are you and what's important to you? But it was that particular worksheet that I struggled with the most. And I kept moving it to the bottom of the pile, and I didn't want to fill it out until I absolutely had to, because I honestly believed I was not tolerating anything. And so finally, one night I was making dinner, and I thought, I've got to fill out this form. It was the last form that I needed to fill out before I could start coaching with her. And while I was cooking and chopping vegetables, I was following a recipe. And I realized once again that I was straining to see the recipe and the food, for that matter. And when I realized that, I looked up, and behind me at the light, it was very dim, and I realized what a frustration it was. That light was above and behind me, casting a shadow of my torso onto my workspace. And in that moment, I realized I had found my first toleration. I was thrilled that I had found it. So I quickly wrote that down. And when I wrote it down, I noticed over at the front door, my black blazer was hanging by the door. And this was a double-breasted blazer that I absolutely loved. And because I was in the commercial photography industry, I wore that blazer a lot, because you wear black to work every day. And all of a sudden, I realized that I had a toleration in that blazer. Despite the fact that I loved it, it was missing the inner button. And you know how that is on a double-breasted blazer. If you can't button that inside panel, it'll fall down and be uneven. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I have another toleration. So I wrote that down. And with those very first two tolerations, my mind opened. And later that night, I went through the house and wrote down a ton of tolerations, and then began the process of eliminating them. That's how it all came to be.
So can you share some other things that you were tolerating? Because I have things in my own life too. And they quite often, mine end up on a to-do list. And then my to-do list becomes my toleration.
Yes, because you haven't done it. Yes, I get it. Yes, so
Getting
some other,
because it's too big.
and you get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I understand. So one of the other things that I was tolerating is some thank you notes that hadn't been written phone calls that needed to be made. And these are like business and personal. And you know how that is. It's like you so want to write this person. They did something nice for you. They gave you a gift and it's in the back of your mind, but you just don't sit down with the note and the stamp and do the thing. And so it's always there in the back of your mind. You really should be doing this. And it just weighs on you. Yeah, so unwritten thank you notes, phone calls. Also, this is a biggie of financial issues that people have, something that hasn't been done that needs to be done, appointments that need to be made, medical appointments that need to be made. All of those things, they're in the back of your mind, they're weighing on you. You need to do them, but they just don't get done. And this process helps one identify and two, actually do something about them.
Wow. You have a book and you have been speaking all around the community.
Mhm.
Can you tell us some stories, what their tolerations are and what they're doing about them?
Yes, and here's the thing. Until you really understand the concept of tolerations, you might not be thinking of your own. But as soon as they understand that concept, the light bulb goes off and they start to think about things. I always have people share. There's always a segment of time where they can share some of their tolerations. And it's so inspiring to hear them come to that realization and what they're going to do about it. But for them, it's illuminating. So one lady shared that she had bought a home when she was a newlywed. She was probably 50 something at the time. She and her husband were still in the home. There was a fireplace in that home, and there was no mantle over the fireplace. And from the day they saw the home for the first time, before they bought it, they knew they wanted a mantle in that home. And her husband said, "Oh, you don't need to hire anyone to do it. I'll do it." And years went by, right? Probably 30 years went by, no mantle. And so when she came to the understanding that she had been putting up with a mantleless wall, and she said, "I always envisioned it being decorated for the holidays and having our family photos up there and candles, but it wasn't there." And her husband just didn't do it. So when he was gone on a hunting trip, she made arrangements with a builder to actually put in a mantle. And she was thrilled with that it got done. And when her husband got home, he didn't even notice that there was a new mantle there. But she said that thing that had bothered her every day for the 30 years that they were in that home finally got done. And she said, "I just love it." Some people might be thinking, well, it's just a mantle. What's the big deal? Problem is that when your attention goes to that mantle, every time you pass it and you think, "I really want a mantle there," and you don't have it, that becomes a drain. But sometimes what the tolerations are more significant than that. They might be a relationship challenge that someone's been putting up with for too long, or a habit that they've been doing, a habit they have. One lady said that her habit of rushing all the time was the thing that she was tolerating. She said, "I hate leaving the house with not knowing if I have my phone with me or if I have my purse with me. Did I bring my water? Do I have a snack?" She said, "That's how I left my home all the time. And I was always rushing to my appointment." And she said, "I'm tolerating that." So sometimes it's a personal habit that they're tolerating.
Colleen, that is so brilliant. I've always got projects. I'm not one of these people like my husband, he's retired now. And even before when he wasn't retired, he takes a nap every day. And I don't even know how to take a nap. I try to take a nap, but my brain is going. So I lay there like 5 minutes going, okay, I'm done. I'm that same kind of person, type A, always going. And I think you're right, because I do see myself rushing and running late and wanting to set my clock. I was on time for my hair appointment today because in my mind, I set it as 15 minutes earlier. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way I can do it because I work right up to the last minute. So, are a lot of people like this? They're just too busy to focus on it. What kind of solutions do you have for people?
So I think what happens, Katana, it becomes a habitual way of being sometimes, like to have this habit of rushing. It's just how you do things, right? Like you work up until the last minute. Women, too, are trying to always multitask and get a lot done. And so we just develop these ways of being. What this exercise does is helps us take a step back and say, wait, if I could wave a magic wand and take care of these things that I'm bothering me, what would I take care of? And oftentimes it's these habits. I don't want to go to bed so late. I don't want to be watching the news first thing in the morning. different things like that, that people suddenly they had their life goes on and they think, I don't want to put up with that anymore. This is not how I want to live. Oh, so to your question, what's the solution to that? It's to first become aware of what you're putting up with. That again, if you could wave a magic wand, you would get rid of, you would take care of and eliminate if you could, and you can.
Yeah, and I think when we have to actually dedicate some time to what you just said, to looking at what we're tolerating and spend time trying to figure out the solution. And I know you're going to help us with that. So we talked a little bit about this, but I think you probably have more suggestions, like there's always a cost to something like this, because especially, let's say it's a health issue or it's a money issue, there's literally a cost to having these tolerations and not addressing them.
There absolutely is. The thing is, where our attention goes, energy flows. So if you're giving your attention to unfinished projects or appointments that need to be made or taxes that need to be filed, you're giving a little bit of your energy to every one of those things. And at the end of the day, that can add up to a lot of energy that you're just wasting because you just keep going over and over these unfinished tasks in your mind. There is a quote, there is nothing as fatiguing as the hanging on of an incomplete task. And the challenge is that as long as we're holding on to it and we're thinking about it, we're giving energy to it, but it's never getting completed. So day in and day out, we're thinking about this task and it's just taking our precious energy. So the cost is big, but it's not only that, it's not just energy, it's distraction, it's adding to our feelings of overwhelm. When you have so many things that are not getting completed and they're just running in your mind, it's overwhelming. And then you can't focus on the very thing that you want to get done because you're so distracted by all the things that are undone.
It causes stress. And
Mhm.
I believe that stress is it's probably the number one cause for a lot of health issues.
Absolutely, it is. And Katana, that reminds me of a conversation I had with my brother. And as my brother passed away about a year ago from congestive heart failure, from a genetic challenge. My brother was very athletic. He had lots of energy, always was learning. But in the later stages of his disease, I remember having a conversation with him about this very thing. He said, when I was a young man and I had lots of energy, he said, I always felt like I could do anything I wanted. And he said, and then with this disease progressing, I realize I have a finite amount of energy each day. And I have to be very cognizant of how I spend my energy because it goes very quickly. And he said, one of the things I realized is that stress, overwhelm, emotional upsets take my energy worse than anything else. He said, if I have a challenge with a relationship or an argument or a discussion that's a little bit emotional, he said, I will be completely spent. So his heart failure became a barometer of his energy and what really took his energy. And he became very aware of the things that took the majority of his energy. And you're right, stress was the biggie.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Can you give us like an exercise that we can use that would help us? Like, what would be the first step?
You have to notice it. And that's just training your mind to be aware of what you're putting up with. Sometimes what happens, and like it was for me, I didn't get it at first until that light was too dim again. That's when I got it. But sometimes it's a light switch. It's something as simple as a light switch that doesn't work, or chipped paint on the wall, or every time you get in your car, you think, man, oh man, I need to replace those tires. It's time. And just hearing this conversation and then becoming aware, opening your mind to the possibility that there are things in your life that you're putting up with that you don't have to anymore. So the first thing is to become aware. Start looking at your life and saying, what would I change if I could? And then the very key next step is to write it down. It's not enough to just become aware of it. That will only add to your overwhelm and your stress, trying to hold on to the idea or the memories of all these different tolerations, but to actually write it down and to say, okay, I'm putting up with this. I need to make this doctor's appointment. I need to get my tires changed. I need to get this light fixed so that it goes on when I flip the switch. All these things, a lot of times they're little. They're not really big things. They're not momentous. They don't take forever. Some do, but some take a lot longer. But a lot of them are tiny little things that are just an annoyance that take your energy. So first thing is to become aware. Second thing is to write them down. And then the third very important step is to start eliminating them one by one. And I have tips and tricks for doing that as well. But the first thing, of course, is to become aware, write them down, and then start taking action.
Yeah. Give us some examples of things you did. You shared some things, but like your spice rack, that was one of them.
Yeah, so this might sound like it's not that important. It's just a spice rack. But for somebody who cooks every day and uses spices in every meal, which I do, and I have a vast quantity of spices and herbs, this was a big deal because the labels weren't good. They had browned over the years. I've used the same jars for probably 20 some odd years that I keep refilling. I purchased bulk herbs. And every time I went in there, I didn't like it. I couldn't access the herbs. I'd have to reach around and pull five out to get to one. And I thought, Colleen, this is such a huge toleration. So I figured out a way to set my whole cabinet up so that everything is in alphabetical order. I relabeled everything. I bought new labels on Etsy. I used my old jars. And now everything is alphabetized on turntables. And in a second, I can access every herb I need. It was such a huge deal. And this is what happens when you resolve a toleration. You will go back to that area. Let's say it's a cabinet or a closet that you've figured out a solution to, or you've cleared out, and you go back and you just stand and look at it. It's like the brain really likes the fact that it's all in order now versus chaotic. So that
Right.
was a big one. The other really big one was the garage. I have a very small garage, and it was from the 1950s, so all dark wood on the inside. And it felt depressing to go there, especially after my husband died. And so one day I thought, Colleen, you're tolerating this ugly, dark, dingy garage. It's disorganized and dark. And so I painted it white and I put black party lights around the perimeter, the upper perimeter. And now it feels just festive and joyful to enter that garage, which is my first encounter when I come back home. So it's a big deal. It might not seem like a big deal in the moment. It's not going to save the world, but it's saving your peace of mind. And that changes how you show up in the world.
So do the lights light up when you go in?
So that's a great question. They don't currently. They go on with a flip of a switch. But today I'm getting the tool that I need to connect them to the garage door opener so that they go on automatically. So that will be done tomorrow.
Oh, is it? See, no, you are so great at that stuff. I know you have something that can help us. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I have a worksheet that will help people identify their tolerations. If they were like me and they couldn't think of any right off the top of their head, then this worksheet gives them many different categories where tolerations are usually found. And on top of that, I have tips for how to overcome them. And one is one of my clients, she set up a power hour. So every day between certain hours, 1 hour, it's her toleration elimination hour. And she just dives in and goes to it and gets rid of as many tolerations as she can. She makes those phone calls that have been uncomfortable. She sets the appointments, writes the letters, gets the thing done. Other people have gotten together with a partner, an accountability partner, or in an accountability group, which we are forming as well, so that they have camaraderie, they have accountability and support to move through these tolerations because some of them are challenging to get rid of. We've
Mm.
put up with them for a long time for a reason, and because we feel resistance to them. So having support, super helpful.
It's like putting the oxygen mask on yourself. We say that all the time, but it's
Mhm.
not just ourself. It's our mental clarity. A lot of those things we just keep, oh, it's not urgent yet. That's the thing. When it becomes urgent, then we have to deal with it. But a lot of times they're not urgent yet. And so they're at the bottom of the list.
Yes, exactly. So yes, writing it down is super important. And then scheduling it right into your calendar is the next step because it's one thing to notice it, but now taking action is the key. You get the
Mhm.
thing done and then you check it off. And that's where the real magic happens is when you get it done.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that you haven't covered?
One thing I want to share is that when people start eliminating tolerations, and I mentioned that the magic happens when you get something done, you will feel, as so many people do. In fact, I've just been doing a lot of interviews with clients and people who have read my book. That's the number one thing they say is they all of a sudden feel a surge in energy. And if you think about it, you've been giving energy to all these things that are undone or unfinished in your life. And once they get finished and completed, you don't have to give energy to that anymore. And you have energy now free to do other things. So a lot of people report a big surge in energy, more focus, less overwhelm. And what I encourage people to do is when they know that's coming, is to plan for that, is to think about what they would love to be doing. So let's say one of their tolerations is serving on a board or volunteering in some capacity, and they decide, I've done that for 10 years. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to do something new. But then to have the new thing that they would like to replace it. And the reason is that once you eliminate something, nature abhors a vacuum. So all of a sudden, if you have 2, 4, 5 extra hours every week because you've let something go, as it stands, nature will put something in its place. You'll get another board request or you'll have another volunteer opportunity. So this step is about getting very clear about what you would like in your life, what you'd like to add back into your life, so that you're cognizant of what you're putting back in your life and you're doing it based on what you love and what you're passionate about. That's super key.
Because you said where attention goes, energy flows.
Yes,
So getting
exactly.
clear on what you want because you freed up this space.
And the whole point of doing toleration elimination is to subtract from your life that which is not working or which is draining you, and add to your life the things that put a smile on your face and light you up. That's the whole point of it, is to stop filling your life with things that aren't working or are bothering you and bring more joy and excitement and passion into your life.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that sounds so great. You have a book, and I know a lot of people, when they buy your book, they come back and they buy more for gifts. Tell us about that. And tell us how they can get your book too and what it's called.
Sure. It's called Eliminate What You Tolerate, and it is on Amazon. And yes, a lot of people have bought the book and they've come back and bought 10 or 20, or one lady has probably bought 30 or 40 copies. And she gives them out as gifts because she says it made such a profound difference in her life that she wants to share it with others. The great thing about this book is that there's no fluff. I get right down to brass tacks and I get it done quickly. There's not excess. You can get through this book very quickly in an hour and a half and apply it. That's what a lot of people like about it. They like that they can learn the technique and apply it all in one weekend, which is lovely.
Great. And they can get started with your PDF with your checklist. So
Yes.
tell us how they get that.
I'll give you a link for that and they'll be able to access it that way.
If you go to the link at the bottom of the video or the podcast, you should be able to get the free checklist. And in the meantime, they can go to Amazon and get your book.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. Thank you, Colleen, for being here. It's just been so wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much, Katana, for the opportunity. I appreciate it always. Take care.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Thanks for being here for Smart Women Talk. If you want to get on our list, be sure to go join smartwomen.com. And when you do, you'll get invited to all of our shows. You'll know who our guests are. You'll get all their free bonuses. You'll get invited into the Smart Women's Academy. And be sure to like and subscribe to our show. Thanks so much. And until next time, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.